Hello and welcome to the second video of my Mind, Body and Spirit channel, Living in Harmony with the Real World. As maybe you already know, my name is Gary Edward Geddall. I'm a state registered psychologist, psychotherapist, family therapist and hypnotherapist with 25 years of experience working in these fields. These first three introductory episodes are to share with you some of the topics and areas that I will be covering in the weeks, months and maybe even years to come. First of all, we have the 4 published volumes of the Living in Harmony series, which all have interesting topics to discover. Where's the bookshelf? Okay, a bit of video magic. There we go. Hello, bookshelf. Can we please have a look at volume 2 of the Living in Harmony books, please?
Living in Harmony, Book 2, Work, Paradise or Purgatory. So, where are we? Either you're looking to enter the job market, you don't know what you want to do, you don't know what you want to do, you think about where you want to go, or you're already in a job and you have colleagues, bosses, even subordinates, people that work under your control, under your responsibility. So we're going to see how we can deal with all these situations. First of all, I have what I call an agenda. So we'll look quickly through that and see what we have. Under the basic concepts of living in harmony with ourselves, living with sin, which we've dealt with in the first book. If you've looked at that, or if I've already recorded it, then it will be useful and interesting. I'm not going to go into any great details on that. The second subject is much more interesting. What do I want? This is not so obvious. Because people say, oh, I want a job, I need a job. But it doesn't work that way. Because just wanting a job in a vague way opens up too many problems. One needs to be aware of what one wants. So what do I want? First of all, to choose a direction, to know where I want to go. Then you need to know what are your short, medium and long-term goals. So this is very important because you need to know where you want to go, when you want to get there. Because if you're a young woman and you want a job that's a career, but you also want to have a family, want to take some time off to raise your kids, then that needs to be integrated into your basic concept. Other people, for instance, certain men, they want to go all the way up a certain company, and that will be a totally different approach, a different idea. The question of why do you work is actually strangely important in this day and age. And there are so many different choices and possibilities of how one works, where one works, and why one works. What are you trying to get out of it? Because knowing what you want out of a job is very important before you start to go looking for one. Because you might get a job, it might be a very good job, it might be the job that you think has everything that you want. And at the end of the day, you're unhappy because you've not looked at what you actually want to get from your work. And the last part of this subject is what I call predators and preys. It's subject totally in itself. It can be under any book or any concept. We are all basically either a predator or prey. One is not better than the others, but depending on our personality types, the way we function, the way we look at life, then that type of job that responds to that sort of personality is very important. If you're a predator, businessman, salesman, responsible for a big enterprise, this is great. Male or female, changes nothing. However, if you are more into caring and more prey, which means that you are more caring for other people, for those around you, then it's better to be in one of the caring professions perhaps, either a teacher or a nurse or something, a social worker maybe. Next, we talk about getting a job. Getting a job, opening up to getting a job is often quite a complex thing. You need to open up your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your mind and your heart. And if you don't open up all of those, you're missing opportunities. How much are you worth? This is really important because if you undersell yourself, you're going to be frustrated And if you oversell yourself, you're going to be more stressed. So trying to find out something that makes sense in the value that you have as a person, not just money. Situation, circumstances, the environment, that's also important. Getting in, that is interviews and all that good stuff which many people have written about and masses about how to get in. But I have a slightly different approach. It's worth to have a look. And then you have the written and unwritten conditions. This is very, very important because somebody might offer you a job and you might even have a contract, but you might actually find out when you get into the job that the contract isn't really the way people function. And I've noticed specifically for Americans, in American companies, for instance, they might be offered 4 or 5 weeks of holiday in their contract. But if they take more than 2 weeks, they're really badly looked at and it doesn't work. Or if they're not available to work after hours or not available to work at weekends, they're considered to be not invested. And when you take on a job, it's worth to actually not just find out what the official rules are, the official conditions, but the real conditions, the way that that industry actually functions. So now you've got a job, working with others. So we'll go back to the agenda, and this is now on the section 2, where we have our co-workers, bosses, and subordinates. We'll start off with the co-workers. First of all, we have what I call the Konifosh. I use these animal archetypes, so not to be too specific, but I think that if you've been in the job market long enough, you will already have met some of these persons. Cunning fox is lazy, cheating, they're sort of very seductive, very interesting, male or female, everything is male or female, and somehow or other they get you to do a large part of their work. And you want to. Very interesting. Then we have what I call the sad, slow snail. Now, this is somebody that is doing their best, it's not very happy in life, things don't always go, and what happens? We feel we want to help them out, and again, we end up doing more than we should. And this other person, although they keep asking for help, in maybe not just in their work, but in other areas of their lives, they don't seem to ever really benefit from it. And they're constantly, time after time, in problems where things do not work as they should for them. The busy beaver. The busy beaver is very, very hardworking, very industrious, a very good colleague if you work as a team and the value of the team counts as a lot. However, if you're not careful, you will seem lazy by comparison. You will seem disinvested by comparison. When you have a co-worker that's there before the work starts, stays until after it's finished, is very available for weekends and extra tasks, what does that make you look like? Even if you're doing your job exactly as you're supposed to, be very careful because the busy beaver can be very dangerous, not directly, but indirectly as a point of comparison. And then finally on this area, we have the bitch. And the bitch is often a woman, not always. Sometimes a secretary, it's one of those roles. And strangely enough, I've known a few bitches that have come quite high up in the places I've worked. So I've worked quite a few different places with my weird past. And they can be very efficient, very appreciated by the hierarchy, but very difficult to have as colleagues because they often point out your weaknesses and they don't have much patience with you. I have a wonderful story about a colleague, well, a boss, Miss Vera Pitkin-Hammond, who I mentioned in my books. I doubt if she's still alive. She was a magnificent woman, but she was very, very difficult. But I've seen others the same that have been more on the same level. So that's something to keep an eye on. They're not always your enemy. It's something very important. Most of these people are not necessarily your enemies. You just have to find out how to work best with them. So we've passed the co-workers, we go to the boss. Because we all have bosses. Now, the first boss is the vampire, the thief. This is the classic boss that steals your ideas. I don't know if any of you remember Working Girl. She was a very good film, really fun. And I could have put Sigourney Weaver up in that image, but I'm not so sure it was such a good idea for copyright reasons. I don't know if she would appreciate it. But the vampire is someone that takes your work, sucks the life out of you, and uses it to advance their own selves. The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man is often not available, not there, out doing this, doing something else, busy phone calls, and yet every time there's an important decision to be made, it has to pass through him, which can really block your projects and things you're doing. And of course, when anything good happens, he's always there to receive all the praise. I say he because I feel it's more a masculine thing to do. I think that most women are a little bit more available, but whatever. It's something to keep an eye on. Napoleon, the dictator that says we do it this way, we go forward. Elon Musk, very invested, often leads their troops into battle that have a huge appreciation, a huge loyalty from their co-workers, their troops, their subordinates. But you could burn yourself out. You could end up really unwell in this sort of situation. It could also be incredibly successful for you, but you need to be able to take into account you don't end up with a burnout or just destroyed by the investment that's expected. And then the great and powerful arse, a narcissist. Everything has to go through them. They are the most important person in the universe. Anything that's good is theirs. Everything that's bad is everybody else's fault. Can be very complicated to deal with. Again, somebody that because they need to advance, they need to do well, they could be also useful. You can also benefit from them, but be very, very careful about these sort of people, especially as they are your bosses. And finally, for some of you that move up a little bit in your professional lives, you'll have subordinates. You'll have people that work for you. The shambling sloth doesn't necessarily work for the DMV, I think it is in America. You've seen the film. Slow, very slow, good-natured, full of goodwill, wants to do well, doesn't produce as much as you would want or need. It's a problem, but the main problem is because they're nice. So how do you deal with that? The Pandered Poodle, entitled. Epitome of daddy's girl, but there's also mummy's son, there's also the boss's nephew, and all sorts of different people that expect to be treated better than everybody else because it's just normal for them to be treated well and a bit exceptionally. Need to be careful because they often have good contacts and they could make your life a misery. So complicated, but also they often have a good sense of values. And if you can appeal to their sense of values, they can do good work, they can be invested, and they just expect to be treated a bit differently, better than the others. It can be dealt with. The cheeky monkey. Now the cheeky monkey, alright, disrespectful, it's often a situation where before you have become a manager, you have had a relationship with this person as an equal. And they've been fun, and you've been at the same level, you make fun of each other. And the problem is that as you've gone up, they somewhere don't notice it. They know officially they're not stupid, but somewhere in their relationship with you, they expect still to have this preferred relationship of friendship and, unfortunately, lack of respect. And it's difficult because they can be incredibly loyal, incredibly supportive, incredibly helpful, but they can also destroy the whole environment because other people that are your subordinates notice that they're not respecting you. And that can create havoc. So complicated, interesting, can be dealt with. And finally, the saber-toothed shark, the bottom biter. the one you need to watch who's after your job. And that can be scary because you can feel in the energy there's not just a lack of respect, it's just that basically you're supposed to be gobbled up so they can go forward. However, they can be trained, they can be harnessed, they can be ridden in a positive way for both you and they to go up. Because if they can find you to be beneficial to them, then they can support you. But you need to be very careful that they get enough food, enough benefit, but without taking over your place. So that's basically the logic of this second book. And there it is. Just let you read that to take a moment to realise that anyway, these are just subjects. I'm not going to do things in order. I'm not going to go one chapter after another. I'm going to pick things out I consider to be interesting in the moment, and slowly we will cover all these topics. Thank you to my professional presentation of this second book.
No, thanks. I think that's enough for the books for now. Put it away. Thank you. So, here is the second batch of subjects and areas I will be covering. Please, please, please like and subscribe to this channel. Remember that for the moment I'm doing everything alone, the sound, the light, the bookcase, the special effects and everything else. I also have to work full time, and I do get to see my family from time to time. Not too often because they don't like that anyway. And as I live in a French-speaking world, I also make videos in French, which means for the moment I will not be able to upload episodes as often as I would wish. So I could really, really do with your help to get this channel up and working. Don't forget to tell your friends and share this link. And finally, well, we can go into these other things later. So until the next time, love, light, live long and prosper. See you soon. Best wishes.